Pre-game action here live at the BetMGM Sportsbook at the Great Lawn at State Farm Stadium. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Happy Football Sunday, everybody. I'm Johnny Venerable Bulbrock, the playmaker. Britton Golden as the Arizona Cardinals travel to Philadelphia to take on the top-ranked Philadelphia Eagles. Arizona Cardinals, 2 weeks left in the regular season. Draft implications, Gannon revenge game. Where do you want to start, Bo Brock?
Yeah, let's start with that revenge game. Can Jonathan Gannon's undermanned roster, can they do enough to have a good showing for their coach, Britton, as he wants to kind of show the city of Philadelphia that he wasn't the main reason that they lost in the Super Bowl, that he is a guy that was worthy of the defensive coordinator position and then some, and then that they truly miss him by his team showing up and competing today. But do they have enough? It's going to ride on the shoulders, the legs. I think if Kyler Murray have his best performance of the season.
Oh, agreed. I mean, it's going to be big for Jonathan Gannon going back to where he was at. And, I mean, the big thing is the Eagles' defense has struggled heavily since Jonathan Gannon has left. So I think it's going to be a big thing for him. He wants to get back in. He needs his quarterback to play well today. He needs offensive line to play well today. And really for the Cardinals just to be competitive today.
Yeah.
All right, nobody's going in there expecting the Cardinals to go in there and win this game. But if they can go in there and be competitive and show that they can still compete with teams like the Eagles, I think it's a good showing for both.
The Cardinals roster is, at this point in the season, decimated with talent, injuries. But at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head, both you guys. Can this be the Kyler Murray game? Can Kyler Murray put on the Superman cape one time this year and elevate his head coach and say, Coach, I got your back? Because again, I don't know what to expect from Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis' defense. Hopefully they have some success against Jalen Hurts. But we saw it last week. Tyrod Taylor came into that game with the New York Giants and almost upset Philadelphia on his own. Mm-hmm. And you've got Philadelphia having a players-only meeting, and they were somber even after a win. It's like, even with no Hollywood Brown, can Kyler Murray come out? Can he have 300 yards of total offense, multiple touchdowns? Can this be, gentlemen, a one-possession game heading into the fourth quarter? I think most Cardinal fans would take that. Obviously, you want the win. There's significant draft implications. We're going to get into all that and more. But I just hope, Bo, we're not sitting here just like on Christmas Eve. It's like, where are the Cardinals? Complete no-show in the first quarter. That can't happen.
No, it can't. And you're going to have a stellar performance, I think, from your offensive line, because the one place that I think that Philadelphia can get right is that defensive front, and that they have the personnel capable of doing that. And, of course, the newcomer and Jalen Carter. Obviously, Haason Reddick is probably going to be amped up for this game to kind of show, even though, there was probably no opportunity for him to come back because he had made his decision once they declined that fifth-year option and maybe even before that.
Yeah.
But to show that this organization, man, did they get it wrong from the very get-go with him. That defensive front seven, they're going to want to show for so many different reasons. So now the offensive line, the pressure's on DJ Humphries, pressures on Paris Johnson Jr., Yelda Froholt to give Kyler Murray an opportunity to go out there and make plays, because otherwise, if you do, James Bradbury's not playing well. This defensive secondary is a mess for Philadelphia, and other teams have been able to expose it. You can't continually be the get-right game in the NFL, and you can't do it especially when you're trying to back your coach in a revenge type of scenario.
Everybody drop a like in this video. If you have an opportunity to come out, this is our last watch party of the year here at BetMGM. We're here every single away game. We're going to be here hanging out. Kickoff is at 11 o'clock. So, again, like this video, subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube. Get your asses out here to BetMGM. Let's have a good time today. I mean, it's like, BG, you think about the dynamic with this team right now. And, we touched on it this week. They're 2 Carolina Panther wins away and 2 losses away from having the number 1 overall pick. I know people scoff at that. I mean, Panthers got C.J. Beathard and potentially backups in Week 18.
Now, hold on. Johnny is sending me, fear porn texts about this. I've never seen somebody so scared of having the number 1 overall pick. But, I know everybody knows what that means. Organizationally, you have to look at Caleb Williams, right? That's the responsible thing to do. But having all the cards isn't the worst thing, Johnny. Let's just say that.
I want the cards to be in the Cards' hands. I don't want any options for our friends at CHGO, Chicago CHGO Bears. But I mean, like, as a player, because you've been on some good teams, you've been on some rough teams. Like, do you think about the dynamic of where the draft pick could fall, or is it just like I'm out there to do a job today?
Player-wise, I don't think the draft is not on anybody's mind, especially during season.
Yeah.
At that point, it's people upstairs. That's what they get paid to do. That's their job, is to go out there and find the right picks that'll, fit with this team and hopefully make you a better team. But as a player, I mean, really in the back of your mind, you really don't care about that draft because, there's going to be guys coming in that are coming after your job anyway. So for players to be thinking about the draft, it would be a player that is completely established, that's making $5-10 million. No, he's not going anywhere. That's probably the only people that are considering, like, man, I hope we can get this guy in the draft to try to make us a better football team.
Like Paris Johnson's probably like, I'd love to see my buddy from Columbus out there running routes for us. I even heard him talk about a little Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's going to be focused, right? I think he's got a huge job ahead of him as far as slowing down this defensive front for Philadelphia. But it is going to be interesting to see, like, how this Cardinals team and everything that we've heard and everything I've witnessed as far as inside that building, nobody has quit, right? They understand what the assignment is, and if they want to continue on with this organization, if they want to put enough tape forward to show that they have a spot in this league, because what we've seen so far, the mass exodus from the Steve Keim players, who's catching on, right? Yeah. If the Cardinals,
1%,
who had just a bottom feeder roster, and they said, you can't play here. The rest of the league was like, well, they can't play for the Cardinals. Why should we think that they can play for us? So I mean, they have to go out there and think, hey, the next 2 weeks, we got to put out tremendous tape. That's just got to be the feeling because, look, the ball's going to drop on the 2023 year and nearly on the 2023-2024 season. This is the second last go-around. They have to remain focused or, the guys that get released and let go this offseason, it's going to be tough for them to catch on elsewhere.
It's funny you bring that up because I think like this week alone, even though it's not the finale, we have more clarity than I think we've ever had. So Marco Wilson, let's just recap the week here. Marco Wilson gets cut and subsequently claimed by the Patriots. He's gone. He'd been sitting since week 11, not in the plans, obviously, for the Arizona Cardinals. Hollywood Brown goes on injured reserve. He's done for the year. I think all of us would agree, like, if he's back, it's going to be for very little money. His best bet is to test the market. And then you look at the inactives today. The Cardinals' front seven is XFL worthy. We've talked about it. Now USFL worthy or whatever the hell they're calling the new league. The Cardinals need immense help in their front seven. They are sitting last year's third-round pick, Cameron Thomas, edge rusher, defensive lineman. He's healthy. He's a healthy scratch for the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, Britton, are telling you, we would rather go with undrafted free agents, practice squad guys, street free agents. I mean, the exodus, as Bo mentioned, of Keim guys, I mean, it is just a stark contrast to what we saw at the earlier part of the season.
No, and you're seeing it as well. I mean, it's one of those things that now you're almost treating this as, a preseason.
Yeah.
The end of the preseason you've got guys that are trying to fight for jobs elsewhere. You know they're not going to be back here. You know that this new regime is trying to get their group of guys in here, the guys they want to bring in to mold the team that they want to make out of this. So, the guys that are on the back end of this, these last two games are basically your biggest job interview to see where you're going to go, where you can make an impact and hope that somebody sees it.
Yeah, I think that the unfortunate part about the moves that are coming, I think maybe outside of Marco Wilson, I think Marco Wilson was a lack of a better, term, like good soldier throughout the season, right? Obviously, just couldn't compete, didn't take to the scheme, didn't take to coaching, and just had a horrible season, gave up the most yards by 300 for Arizona Cardinals defensive backs, and he hadn't played since week 11. But guys like Cam Thomas are the guys that bought in and then just unfortunately weren't a scheme fit. Like that they were doing everything within their power. Like Nick Rawls even told us this a couple weeks ago. Like, what's the development of Cam Thomas Ben? He's like, well, early on he wasn't a scheme fit, and then we were able to get him up to speed. But you're seeing that that's just too much to overcome. And now you're starting, like, they weeded out the guys that didn't buy in, right? The Isaiah Simmons that they sent for a 7th-round pick for peanuts, and Josh Jones, who was in a contract year. Like, they sent those guys out early. And then they held on to the guys that are at least willing to take on the coaching and buy into the process. But now it's showing, okay, even with all of that, It's just not a fit.
Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas were their two like prototypical edge rushers, like pop years. In year 2, they're basically going to be off the team. Myjai Sanders is off the team. I would imagine Cameron Thomas maybe gets dealt this offseason. Really, really unfortunate. What's not unfortunate, though, is the new wide receiver 1 for the Arizona Cardinals. It's Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch now, as we jump into the Bird Gang Blitz. No Hollywood Brown. Let's get our guy, number 83, friend, a part of the program here on PHNX Cardinals, of course, the Greg Dortch podcast. Let's get him some targets today, Britton. You saw him on Christmas Eve torch the Bears in the second half. By default, he is your number 1 receiver right now, along with Michael Wilson and, of course, Trey McBride at tight end. But what are you looking forward to seeing from Greg today with no Hollywood Brown? Like, hey, Greg, you're it today in the passing game.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing him actually included into this offense. Not something where it's at the end of the game, we're trying to get some yards, we're trying to move the ball a little bit, and he shows up. I think you've got plays designed. I hope you have plays designed in this game from the get-go. If we're throwing the ball, that number 83 is a target. He's in the mix. You're looking at him as your number 1 this week. I mean, he's done nothing but make plays every time he's been in the game. Like you said, toward that catch and run, it was a 3-yard route that he turned into about a 40-yard touchdown catch. I mean, he's exciting to watch. He was exciting to watch last year, and he still wasn't a focal point at receiver, but constantly made plays, constantly showed up. I love to watch this kid play, whether he's returning the ball, whether he's catching passes. So I'm looking forward to seeing, him in a big way today, as getting him involved, and at the same time getting Michael Wilson involved.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to find ways. I know he hadn't shown up when he was supposed to, and he's been hurt most of this year, but you need to find ways to get both of these young receivers involved and in the mix and help you move the ball down the field.
You do a show with him every Tuesday, the Greg Dortch podcast, and he's a low-key guy. He's not somebody that's going to command the football, get in people's faces, but it does feel like he's going to be able to put these next 2 games on tape, as well as last week, into the offseason and just let the tape speak for itself.
Yeah, I think, and he's very cognizant of that. Like, he understands what he's playing for.
Yeah.
And I think that he has been patient enough and continued to put in the work and the preparation throughout the time, like his entire tenure here, and understood that if he slips at all, if he doesn't prepare like he needs to prepare as a starter, and when that opportunity comes, that if he doesn't take advantage for it, guys like himself, they're out of the league. They don't get the next opportunity.
Yep.
So when I think it's really going to play to his advantage, to where, there was no Hollywood Brown, there was no shadow of Hollywood Brown, and maybe the potential that he could come and not practice and then play this week, to where Kyler Murray was preparing for Greg Dortch to come out and play in this role, and then realize, like, he had the ultimate trust fall last week, right, with the 3-yard pass. Like, oh, shit, he can make a play with the ball in his hands. I forgot that. I knew that, but I forgot that. Now he can, look for 83 maybe in his first couple reads here and get the ball in his hands just like he's done before. And I think that for GD, it's going to be huge today. Him, and I hear you, Britton, Michael Wilson to come back and be shut out these last 2 games we need to figure this out. So if Kyler can emphasize, obviously, Trey McBride, Greg Dortch, and then Michael Wilson can find some open space, because they're undermanned as far as the secondary. No Darius Slay, no Bradley Roby. It's going to be Bradbury and I think Avonte Maddox out there in the nickel. You should have your opportunities. You should have some open space.
Eli saying Dortch has that fire in his gut. Absolutely. But part of the big factor of getting him the football, can they get ample protection on the edge? And that's our next topic of discussion here on the Bird Game Blitz. Can they slow down Reddick's revenge game for Haason Reddick? This is a guy who has terrorized the Cardinals since he's left the desert. He had the big game against Carolina in the upset a couple of years ago in Arizona, and then subsequently, ever since he's been in Philadelphia, he has been one of, if not the premier pass rusher in the NFL. You would assume number 7 is going to go up against DJ Humphries today. Maybe he gets a little action on Paris Johnson Jr., but, I mean, this is a young man who's got an elite skill set that the Cardinals failed to utilize up until his contract year. How do you go about slowing a player of this caliber down, BG?
I mean, you almost have to put this man in category with the Michael Parsons type, because you can line him up on either side of the field at this edge rusher spot, and he's going to get to the quarterback. He's been that guy. Like you said, he just wasn't utilized properly when he was here as a Cardinal, and you saw it when he left and went to Carolina and dominated, and every year he's been in Philly, he's dominated. I mean, we're looking at a guy that's gone 4 straight years with 10-plus sacks, and he just looks to be unstoppable. He can stop in the run game. He can rush the passer and get you there. The man is very elite at what he does. So this is another one of those days. Like we talked about it when Aaron Donald came to town. We talked about it when Michael Parsons was here. You've got to find ways to slow down number 7, because if you don't, he can completely terrorize your offense and completely change that game for your offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, New York has one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and they were able to slow down this pass rush all game last week.
Yeah.
And you just can't. I mean, I know what he's fully capable of. I mean, there was a stretch this year where in 7 games, I think Haason Reddick had 8.5 sacks. We know that he's a streaky player. Remember, he had the 5-sack performance against the Giants wearing a Cardinals uniform, had 12.5 sacks that contract year. But a lot of those sacks came in bunches.
Yeah.
Don't let today be one of those, multiple sack days for Haason Reddick. And I think, we look at this roster, and man, they are down tremendous, across the board. But, the offensive line is one that can hang.
Yeah.
And, they need to be able to hang today. Like, DJ, Paris, and hopefully, we see some of those weird plays where, Haason Reddick gets put in coverage.
Yeah,
I've seen it. It happens.
Unfortunately, it's not Vance Joseph coordinating Philadelphia's defense today. How about coordinating the Cardinals' defense? Well, it's Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon versus the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. It's JG versus Philly today. Now, according to our media peers in Philadelphia today, both with the Cardinals and Eagles, Gannon was all smiles midfield with Jeffrey Lurie and Nick Sirianni, and just the whole band got back together today. But you can't tell me something deep down, Jonathan Gannon, the way they treated this man, his exodus, the way they came after JG's family. You can't tell me there isn't a huge part, BG, of that man, the leader of the 53-man roster for the Arizona Cardinals, that wants to come out and dominate his ex-team. Because, the hoagie fan base that is Philadelphia, go eat your cheesesteak.
Right.
They're coming out basically saying this guy was the reason we didn't win the Super Bowl. Now their defense is atrocious this year. They're writing articles. The narratives have never been stronger against JG. What would a win today mean, not only for the Cardinals, but for Jonathan Gannon and his legacy as he's building up his reputation, his resume as an Arizona Cardinal head coach?
A win today, I think, is momentous for JG, right?
Yeah.
You come into the Eagles' place and you win at your former team, that's massive. But I think the biggest thing for JG is just having a defense out there that can compete, that can hold its own, and just stay in the game and not get blown out. Because, you're looking at a decimated football team with the Cardinals. You don't have superstars out there. You don't have a ton, I should say. You've got a Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson. But outside of that, your defense has no big names out there.
Yeah.
Right? So I think for JG going into Philly and his defense putting on a performance that makes this offense in Philly have to work, because, like you said, Philly's defense is nowhere near what they were last year.
Yeah.
When JG and Rallis were out there. So the fact that if he can come in here and put a defense out there that can slow down this Philadelphia offense, I think it's a huge win for JG.
Those pleasantries at midfield, I'm sure it was very Last Dance, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan-esque, where they're meeting and in front of the cameras, their smiles and they're hugging, but they're actually saying, fuck you, bitch. That's how it's going. The words that are exchanged is probably, it's all friendly. JG was joking about what Nick Sirianni said on Philadelphia radio.
Yeah.
And was saying, we want to make JG, what did he say? Realize
real uncomfortable,
and that's what you want to have. But I think that there's a mutual respect. They know what the story is, right? That they wanted to keep JG.
Yeah.
And then they cried that he left, and you kind of left him in a situation where they had to scramble. But that's the reality in the NFL. Now JG just needs to, and his team needs to back him up and prove that they were right and wanting to keep JG.
Yeah, it feels like to me the Cardinals have nothing to lose in this game. It almost feels like you have this as a one-possession game in the second half. Maybe people get tight for Philadelphia. Dallas wins last night, egregious fashion, but still, Eagles have to keep pace today.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, if the Cardinals are able to hang around, and if you're part of that core on the Arizona Cardinals, if you're Paris Johnson, Kyler Murray, James Conner, you want to get this dub for your head coach. You know what he's been through. Kyler Murray, more than anybody, can relate to Jonathan Gannon. You have your name slung in the mud over headlines, people not having a good sense of who you are and what you believe in. This is a day where it feels like to me, I'm going to say this every week until it happens, this is a Kyler Murray pick your head coach up day. Yeah. And I'm not saying the Cardinals defense is going to be terrible, but if there's a way for the Cardinals to compete today, it's with the offense sustaining drives and remaining on the field. That's part of the reason why, as we go into Tap That App, Here are a couple tasty nuggets I like for you to make some money with our friends at BetMGM. Let's start with the over. I don't know why this line is what it is. Over in points, 40.5. Like, the Cardinals' offense has struggled at times, but like if you combine the fact that Philadelphia gets the Cardinals front seven, and then the Cardinals could have success where Tyrod Taylor did last week, like I feel like this is the lock of the day.
I can't believe that. I'm logging on right now.
40.5 right now. I also like A.J. Brown anytime touchdown -110. I was talking to the fellas before the show today. A.J. Brown's been a point of contention. They didn't get him enough targets last week. He's been pissing and mowing. I would be shocked if A.J. Brown didn't score today. I would also be shocked if Trey McBride, -110, over 64.5 receiving yards, didn't have a bounce-back day. Doesn't have Jalen Johnson hanging all over him. Chicago did a good job isolating him. Philadelphia, I mean, no Darius Slay. James Bradbury's been terrible. Like, Trey McBride should get his today. There's nobody in their back seven for Philadelphia that can hang with him, and I think Kyler Murray is going to go for broke with number 85.
I think he has to.
Yeah, those are my picks today,
Their
gentlemen.
safety play already sucks. Their linebacker play, we know about it. It's way down from last year because of the exits of Kazir White and TJ Edwards. They're on like third, fourth, fifth type string players.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, unless they're going to go Jalen Johnson, where he was the top corner covering Trey McBride, which might happen, that's where you got guys like Dortch and Mike Wilson that need to step up.
We're going to step up here. We're live for your halftime show, for your post-game show. Real quick, final thoughts now. Bo and I on our Friday show, we picked Philadelphia. We picked them to win pretty big. What's your thoughts today? Prediction time.
This could go either way. This is one of those, like you said, the Cardinals have nothing to lose in this game.
Yeah.
So this could be one of those where the Cardinals pull an upset, where the Cardinals keep it close, or the Cardinals could get blown out if they show up like they did Christmas Eve. So I think the Eagles win this game. I think they win it pretty comfortably. You know, I like it 28-14 Eagles. I hope the Cardinals can come out here and keep it close and keep it competitive and maybe steal one, but I think Eagles 28-14.
Yeah, I do think it's just too much to overcome roster-wise. I think the best case for the Cardinals is Kyler comes out, plays like the quarterback that we know he's capable of being, and then Brian Johnson, the play caller on the offensive side of the football for the Eagles, gets too cute.
Yeah.
And you hope that you're able to build a lead and maybe hold on for dear life. But I think even no lead is insurmountable for this Philadelphia offense against this depleted defense at any point in this game. But, you know, that's best case. But I think realistically, you know, Philly's going to be able to kind of impose their will on this Arizona Cardinals defense with what they do in the run game and how stout they are up front offensively.
Regardless of the outcome, we're back. Halftime post-game show live here from the BetMGM Sportsbook at the Great Lawn. Final watch party of the year. We're going to have live updates as it relates to what's happening with the Carolina Panthers, what's happening with the Houston Texans and the Cardinals' second first-round pick. Like and subscribe. BG, Bo Brock, Johnny Venerable. We'll see you at the half.
We all silly like the mayor.